Story of the construction, briefly. When the vestry got this several years ago at this point, we had been dealing with somebody have a question? Okay. We had been dealing with BES, which is a historical preservation group of architects and contractors. They were the ones that worked on our big window, and they were the ones that told us that the tower was in imminent danger because of mortar issues and its instability, therefore. So we looked at lots of different things with them. We didn't kind of like where they were kind of pointing us towards. So we decided, after Chris showed us a drawing of what it could look like with just a roof on it, because we asked for that. We went back into the archives and found out that the original building had a roof on it, very much like the roof that Chris had drawn. The building initially was not built like you see it. The tower was not put on. I'm not going to call it a tower because it's not. It's the crenellated roof was not put on until somewhere between 7 and 10 years after the church and the parish hall were built. It was done because the rector at the time thought it would be a fanciful and lovely look like an English church. And so they got an architect, they drew up plans. The tower initially, with the architect's plans, was supposed to be a good 10 feet taller than it is now, because it's really not a tower if you can't see over the building, right? So he put together that whole plan, and just shortly before they were to begin the construction process, the priest went to the architect and said, "We've just had a really bad time. We had the stock market crash and everything. My people that I was going to have build this, that they were going to contribute, don't have enough money anymore. So we need to cut back what we were going to put." So that he took almost all of the height off the tower and said, it's going to have to look kind of more like this. This is the priest. The architect said, "It won't work." And he said, "I don't have much choice. We don't have the money. So we're going to have to make it this way." So the architect walked off the job, because he knew it wouldn't work. So they got another architect. They did it to the specifications that they had. And about 10 years later, it had already started to have problems because it wasn't designed well. Towers are supposed to be much more tall. The part of the tower that was facing the water was getting enormous amounts of wind and rain and snow and freezing and raining cycles. And so not even 10 years after the initial crenellated roof was put on, they spent $19,000 to repair the top of the chapel. That's how much they spent on the entire church and parish hall together. About $400,000 in our amount of money today. So less than 10 years after they built the crenellated roof, they had to spend the same amount that they spent on the church and the parish hall together to fix it. It has happened about roughly every 20 or so years. They've had to put enormous amounts of money into the tower because it keeps failing. It keeps failing because it was an initially flawed design. So when the vestry found out all of this and we started looking at all the different plans, we decided that what we really needed was something that corrected all the problems that had happened since they put a crenellated roof on. So we looked at actual roofs like the initial building had. And we looked at ways that it could fix all of the problems with all of the roofs, not be as expensive, because we knew we wouldn't be able to fund $1.4 million project at the time. And it would also save generations going forward from having every 10 or 20 years to have to fix the crenellated roof again because it would fail. At about this time, I talked to the rector in Bangor, who has a similar church made of exactly the same stone, with an actual tower in the front of their church where people go in, and it had failed. So they brought in an architectural preservationist, like we did for the front, except they did it for the tower, their tower. They at-graded it, or they thought. 5 years later, They had to pull it down to about roof height to us. So we knew all of this in vestry. We brought all this information to you once before to do something that was attractive but worked, maybe even taking it back to what it originally looked like, which is the design that you see that we brought you. A roof will be put on the chapel, the peaked roof that will mimic the one in the narthex. And at some point, if we want to, we can add any kind of adornment to the top that we want to. It can have a fancy cross, it can have a little tiny bell tower on it, it can have anything you want to make it something that you might find incredibly attractive. Except for a crenellated roof. We're not going to do that again. I want to let you know this decision was not made lightly. It was not made to make anybody mad. It was done to find a workable solution to a problem that has been plaguing them since 1935 and needed to stop, because we just don't have the money to spend refixing and refixing and refixing and refixing that crenellated roof. So they made the responsible decision to attack this problem to solve the issue of the mortar going to pot. I mean, when they take down the wrap, which they're going to do soon, they have to take off fully the first top third of the crenellated roof. It's history. That's where the bells are. That's why we can't play them right now. They're afraid if we play them, it will be enough of a vibration to have it come crashing down through the rest of the building, which is, I don't want to have happen to anybody here. So they're already going to have to do that. The second third of the building, they're probably going to have to heavily fix, and then the bottom third, they're going to have to repoint. It's what happens with bump outs on buildings, especially ones that face the ocean and have those cycles of heat and cold and freezing and non-freezing. They didn't think about that back in 1925 when he was trying to make it look like an English church, that we don't have English weather. It makes a big difference. It really does. So we made what we considered the best choice for the community. In the time it took us to go through all of this stuff and bring it to you, and because we had some people speak out at the other thing we had in the church when we were talking about this, we brought in a third architect after we talked to a historic preservationist, the architect Chuck Chambers, and we brought in a third one that they wanted us to talk to, who reiterated everything I just said to you. Basically, she didn't say anything we hadn't heard in the vestry before. She acknowledged that you could build it, but it would take yearly maintenance. So think about that. So we just decided it's not worth it. The architect didn't even like it. He walked off the job. He said it wouldn't work, and he was right. It didn't work. We probably should have listened to the architect. So now we are building it, the project. We have finally, I'm calling you together because we finally have a bid. It's taken us 2 years to get anyone to bid on this project. The project is small from their perspective. It's not like an enormous building. They're not building like a school or something like this. It's a really small project, but it's not to us. It's a big project to us. Unfortunately, in the time it took us to get to this position, the costs have gone up 30% because of materials. So instead of it costing $600 and some odd thousand to fix, it's now going to be $900 and something thousand, almost $1 million to fix it. If we had chosen to do the crenellated roof, that project would now be $2 million today. Think about that. So I'm telling you this because they're going to start in September, and at least they're planning to, and they should be done January, early January, late December, something like that. 3 months, 4 months?
It was about 4 months, the end of December was the projected completion.
Yes, we evidently can continue to use our church as we are while they're working on the chapel portion. It should fix all of the things, including the roofs on all buildings. We're going to have a new roof on the church, a new roof on the chapel, and that will be great because it's been leaking incessantly. I want, before anybody gets upset about the fact that we're having asphalt shingles put on the roof, to tell you why. Slate shingles, when they put the slate shingles on this roof, they used the cheapest grade of slate they could, which, heck, I would have too. I mean, if you've got an enormous project, slate still lasts a long time, even if it's the lowest grade. We chose deliberately not to put slate, the vestry and I decided that there are things coming out on the market that look like slate on the roof, but are solar. They don't look like solar roofs, they don't look like panels, they look like slate, a slate roof. And it's about, I don't know, 4 years, they have them now, but they're not, the kinks aren't all out of them yet. So I'd say another 3 years or so, 3 or 4 years. So we wanted to put something on the roof that we didn't feel we had to have on there for 100 years, because we wanted to be able to take advantage of the energy that we would save in this place to heat it, and in the wintertime particularly, with a solar roof. So those prices should be coming down, and in another 5 or 10 years, we will be perfectly positioned to be able to put a solar slate roof on the building. That's why they're going to be asphalt now. I hope it looks pretty. I mean, it looks lovely on this building. So we'll just have to, it's not long, we'll have to wait. But I just wanted to tell you so that when they start doing it, you're like, oh my heavens, it's not slate. That's why. Because we want to be able to be positioned to take advantage of the new technology so we can save money here. Because our oil bills are through the roof. Anyway, fundraising is going to commence soon. We have somewhere near, from all sources, roughly half of it raised already. We still need to raise in excess of $450,000 for this project.
So a bake sale is what you're suggesting?
Yeah, lots of bake sales. So many bake sales. There's going to be a fundraising committee that is getting together. They will be working with professional fundraisers, and all of this is going to have to happen, of course, while I'm gone. Darn. I literally tried to get them to wait until next year so I could help with this, but I really did. I know you're like, yeah, sure you did, Lisa. So be ready for that, because it's going to be coming, because we have to raise money. I think it is important that we pull together as a community. I know there are people that wanted it to happen a different way. I know there are people that wanted different choices to be made. But this was the decision that the vestry, not just one vestry, but 3 vestries, have decided was the most responsible way to fix the problem going forward. Not just to make it pretty, but to fix permanently the problems that we have been having for the decades since it was put together in the 1930s. That's all for construction. Questions? She asks trepidatiously. Sarah, oh, not Sarah, it's Phyllis. Hi, Phyllis.
Just a question. Being so kind of in the area, yard sales, tax sales up here?
They do have, she asked if they have yard sales or tax sales here. They do. Tag sales, sorry. Yes, they do. I'm afraid we're going to have to think bigger than that, though. And that's going to be up to the fundraising committee. That will help, but it's certainly not, we're going to all, remember how we all contributed when the window had to be repaired? We'll probably do something like that. So people will have up to, I don't know, what do we do, 3 years that they could contribute a set amount. We will do that as well as the other things. If we do not raise the money, there are several things we can do, but almost all of them will involve a big hit on our budget each year. Big hit. If we have to borrow the money, it's probably going to be around $50,000 to service that debt until it's paid off per year. Just to let you know. And you can imagine with our budget as little as it is, that's a heavy hit here. So, any other questions? Rosalie.
Did you address the issue of the demolition?
They will be demolishing I really can't. They start in September. They have to unwrap it first. Then they will start with the top of it, obviously. They will have to remove the bells, obviously, because you don't want them falling through. And then they will go down from there until they get to a part where they're fine, and then they will build it back up again with the roof on it at the end. Does that help? What did you specifically want to know?
If you're taking the tower down, out.
The roof down? Yeah.
I'm just wondering what it will be like and how much environmental issues around the base of the tower, on church property, and then any abutting property.
Well, it's going to be slow. It's going to come down from the top. And the whole tower, the whole chapel is not going to be taken down. We will still be able to, if we wanted to, we could still use the chapel. That's how little of it will be impacted on the inside. They have just finished their asbestos study, and we came back clean. So that's great. I'm not really sure. I'm not the person to ask that question. I could put Edmund up here to talk about it, but he probably doesn't know at this point either because they haven't started. So we'll have to get back to you on that. Kelly?
The demolition, will there be attractive stones that will not be used again?
Possibly.
Okay, someone suggested, not I, someone made a very good suggestion that we perhaps sell the stones, and of course, it's sort of like a donation, you know.
We could do that for people that wanted a stone from the old building.
Garden, I mean, at least you get something for your, big donation.
That's a good idea. Why don't you take that to the fundraising committee? That's a wonderful idea. I was going to say something else. Now I forgot what it was. Oh, I want to reiterate that even though we are not going to keep the bells, how many of them? 9? 8? We will be keeping a bell. The one we use most frequently, the one we always use for the Eucharist, the one I used for weddings, the one we use for funerals, that one will be staying, and there is a place for it. And we will be able to ring it whenever we want to. So I thought it was important, and the vestry thought it was important that the liturgical bell that we use all the time had to stay. So it's all in part of the plan that we have. The rest of the bells will be sold probably to the person that we got them from. He's already said that he's interested in buying them. So there's another way we can make money. It should be. It's mostly for the material that it's made of, I think. But that's a good idea about the stones. Okay, anybody else? Rosalie.
So, I wanted to just, there's been some confusion about the final preservation architect that came to look at the situation, and she was fine about, developing this new plan of taking the tower down, but she was also very positive about the possibilities for restoration of the tower.
She was, but she was very clear that it would have to be maintained year by year. And she gave a cost that was kind of daunting because it doesn't maintain itself, and it never has. And I'll tell you again about the church in Bangor that was done by preservationists, that 5 years after they did it all, they had to take it all down because it didn't work. So we're not going to discuss this again because the decision was made 2 years ago, people, for the plan that we have now. We can keep talking about it and keep bringing up what we could have done and what other things that would have happened, but this isn't pulling together. This is still arguing about things that are past. We have to get past this past stuff and move forward because the vestry has made a decision based on what they think is the most responsible and aesthetic thing to do for this church. I cannot say this enough. If we persist in going underground and talking to each other about how we really don't like what's going on, this is deleterious to our community. It causes factions, and we do not pull together as a group. And I'll be honest when I say, I'm just being real with you here, this is the demise of many churches when they start doing that. We have to pull together. We did not make a choice to make anybody mad or do something that people didn't like. We made a choice based on what we thought was the most responsible thing that we could afford and that was aesthetically pleasing at the same time and looked like the original church. That was our only concern, not to make anybody mad. I just want to stick up for the 3 vestries that have worked on this hard for years. All right? Any other questions? Pat?
As far as the profile outside, what's the roof?
No, it's going to have a peaked roof like the narthex. We'll put up a picture. I'm sorry, this is killing me here. I am so hot. I can't get my microphone off. Okay, never mind. I won't do it. I'll just kind of fan myself. How's that? It will look very much like the picture that you probably saw. It's been out here and around for a long time, that Chris drew, that has it with a regular peaked roof, and it connects appropriately to the church so that it will be, we don't have to have the cricket that we have now, which is that kind of in-between thing, which isn't working at all. And so it will be it's a lovely, lovely architectural rendering that is, when we pulled the initial plans for the church, which we have upstairs in the archives, it looks astonishingly like the initial church did. So if you want to say, going back into our history, that's basically what we're doing. We're rebuilding the roof as the architect had planned it, rather than the affectation that happened later. So I'll try and get a picture up, Pat, and I'll put it up with the initial one too, so you can see what it initially looked like. It's an architectural rendering, so it's kind of hard to see. But I'll put them both up there. By the way, you may notice that our bulletin board looks weird. I took everything off because it was like paper after paper and it looked terrible. And then I finally got all the paper off and it was wallpaper underneath it. And then I took that off and this is what you see. It's actually called beaver board. It's original to this building. It was only made from 1926 to 1928. It is the medium on which American Gothic, the famous painting with the guy with a pitchfork, that was painted on beaver board. So we are going to, the reason it's all down now is we're going to paint it. It's going to be white like the other one is, and it'll have nice edges on it. So we're just going to use it as a bulletin board like we always have, but it's going to be white soon. So just thought I'd tell you that. That's original. That's historical. Beaver board is rare now. You can't even get it anymore. They were so excited at Rankin's when I went there, and they were like, "Can I come over and see it?" So, and they said painting it is what most people do. Anyway, sorry, that was completely off my script. All right, any more questions? Anybody at all? I can do this all day. No, I can't. All right, the future. Now, I know a few people were nervous when I was talking about the future, and a few people came up to me and said, "Are you leaving?" And I said, "No, I have no plans to leave." "Why? Do you want me to leave?"